Okay, so first of all, I want to tell y'all thank you for coming, even though you didn't even know we were doing this. Thank you for coming. This starts off our CTAE month. For those of you that might not realize that, the month of February is CTAE month. So it is where we celebrate all of the different careers that are offered throughout our different pathways. And we try to use this month to educate y'all a little bit more on different careers that are available. And we try to also hit careers that we don't necessarily have the pathways for, because even though we don't offer those pathways here at Triad, doesn't mean that you might not still be interested in them, okay? So throughout the month, depending on what days our speakers have signed up for, we will either be coming in here during this class time to face-to-face listen to our guest speakers, or we'll be virtually with our guest speakers online, okay? So just kind of know. And then also you want to make sure that you listen throughout the month, because we have different days for our different CTSOs. So FBLA is on Tuesdays, TSA starts today, so they will be on Mondays. Wednesdays is that staining, carpentry, and then Thursdays will be FCCLA. And then also on Fridays, we'll be having different things happen on Fridays for everybody, or for specific groups like our officers, administration, that kind of thing. So I'm just saying, you want to make sure you listen to announcements, because there will be food that will be given away throughout the month. Prizes will be given away throughout the month. So just help us celebrate CTAE month by listening and participating. That'd be great. So today we have our first guest speaker. Some of you might know him, but this is Mr. Andy Rowe, and he deals with cybersecurity, and he has a very interesting story about how he got started into this. He is a Triad alumni also, so he was here. Y'all were the first class to graduate from this field, right? That's how old he is. So if y'all have any questions though about his presentation, of course, you can raise your hand and he'll be glad to answer the questions. And so we want you to get out of this as much as you can. And also don't wait until he leaves to ask the teachers questions. Y'all are notorious for that. We are not the experts of this career or this field. He is. We've asked him to come in to be able to talk to you about it. So if you have a question, by all means, please take the time to ask him the question. Don't wait until he leaves and then bombard the four of us with your questions, because all we can do is email him and ask him to answer it, okay? So I'm gonna turn it over to him now.
Good morning. She just warned me to keep it away from my face. Well, Miss Patterson, sorry. I've known her for a few years, so yeah, I want to talk a little bit about cybersecurity and my position. My name is Andy Rowe, and I work for a company called Booz Allen Hamilton. We're a federal contracting firm for the federal government, and I'm a lead associate there, and I'm taking the enterprise security architect for the firm. So I'm going to go through some slides with you and talk about things, but please, like Ms. Patterson said, if you have questions as we go, raise your hand and let me talk to them as we're there, because I don't want to miss anything for you. It's a pretty broad field, and I'm going to kind of focus in on what I do for the firm, but I can talk a lot about different cybersecurity positions as well. The first thing I wanted to talk about is, well, this is kind of what I'm going to go through. The purpose, I want to go through positions and requirements in cybersecurity, my education and career growth of the field, vulnerabilities, threats, and risks, protecting the federal government with critical U.S. infrastructure, threats, and then kind of career focus. All right, here's, I think, the biggest slide. and this is kind of positions and requirements. The first one is no criminal record, and that's important if you're going to do federal contracting anyway. That kind of security clearances come along with that. And I hold 6 different security clearances for the government, and so that means basically if I do anything they find out, I get in trouble, and I can lose that clearance. Writing ability, that's something that you don't really think of for any kind of computer science, but it is probably the single most important part of my career. And I had a wonderful English teacher here at Triad. Her name was Sherry Parker, and I had her in 6th and 7th grade. And she doesn't really, I've told her I don't know how many times I go to church with her, how much her teaching me and working with me in English and writing, how much it impacted my career going forward. Yes, I do a lot of kind of neat stuff sitting behind computers, trying to hack different facilities. However, everything that I do, I end up writing technical reports afterwards. I talk about the vulnerabilities that I discovered, and then I offer mitigation recommendations for how they can fix those things. So it's very important. Confidence, the reason I put that on there is there's a lot of time I walk into different facilities and I'm telling people that work there what they're doing wrong and then how to fix it. And so you have to be able to stand in front of them and talk to somebody that knows their system and say, hey, well, this is what you're not doing right. And that takes a lot to, you have to convince them that you know what you're talking about. Bachelor of Science in Information Technology, Computer Science, Cyber, and actually mathematics is also one that is often seen in any computer science field. Those things can be used to kind of get you in the door. However, industry certifications and continuing education, that is something, if you're going to do any career in computer science, cybersecurity, anything like that, be prepared. You're always going to be learning. And, you know, that's something that's, I don't know if it's pushed enough for just about every career you're going to do that. Even your teachers here have so many continuing education things that they have to do to keep their certificates. And so it's the same thing in my field. I'll talk about some of the ones that I have going forward here in a moment. Specialization in one of the cybersecurity domains. Cybersecurity is made up of 10 different domains. And if you really want to move forward, you kind of have to focus on one of those things, or at least one of those, and have a good experience in that and be able to speak to that. Security and risk management, architecture and engineering, communications, network security, cryptography, which is like encryption algorithms and how to break those. Assessment and testing, that's something that is growing dramatically right now. Security operations, software development. Software development is, you know, it's a lot easier to make software or write programs than it is to write one that is secure. Every program continuously has different vulnerabilities are found. That's where you see like patch management, where you know software they make a release. That's why on your iPhones you see iOS. I think we're at 14.2 now. All the time whenever patches have come out, it's because there's vulnerabilities that's been discovered. Asset security and physical security. Physical security, cybersecurity actually covers like where buildings are situated, exterior security, doors, access control systems, background investigations, all that's considered when you're looking at cybersecurity. Here's my education. I started out in the Army Computer Science School. That was in 1997 after I graduated from here. And I was an information systems operator analyst. After that, I got an associate's in business, a bachelor's of science in information technologies with a focus in network and telecommunications. I'm a CISSP, or Certified Information System Security Professional. Those 10 different domains, if you want to be a CISSP, you have to have 8 years of experience in at least 4 of those domains, and then you get tested on all 10 of them. And it's a 6.5-hour test, and it's horrible, and it's the worst thing I've ever done. But once again, it's really good in the career. I'm a certified ethical hacker, certified network forensic analyst. I have a graduate certificate from MIT in artificial intelligence and machine learning. I have a graduate certificate in cybersecurity policy from the University of Maryland. And I have 2 classes left, and I'll have my master's in cybersecurity management and policy, also from the University of Maryland. And oddly enough, I have never went to a physical college. I've never sat down in a physical classroom. Everything I did was online, all the classes. All right. My daughter told me I had to tell a whole real story. My interest in computers, I started out in, I can't even remember the year, but there was a flood in Triad at the old school, and it damaged a lot of things. At the time, I was helping clean up. Both of my parents taught here. My mother was an art teacher. I had her, Miss Rowe, she was kindergarten through 5th grade, I believe. But that kind of meant that I got to help. And so as we were cleaning up in the library, they had these old computers, and I think they may have had two of them at the time. And they're going to throw them away, and I said, "Hey, can I have one of those?" And they kind of laughed at me and let me have it. I took it apart and cleaned it up, and I actually soldered some of the things back together and made it work. And bought some books, and I started writing code because I wanted to make a video game. And at the time, computers weren't really widespread. There wasn't a lot of cool video games, and the one that I wrote was not anything that you would look at now and want to do. But I thought it was pretty cool. Plus, I was like in the 5th grade when I did it. In the 6th grade, so at this time they had got the computers working back in the library, and we were allowed to go, and I was asked to pull some stuff down for a teacher that had, Mr. Breimer was here at the time, and during that class talk, he wanted some information pulled off of the internet and brought there, printed out, and I thought it'd be fun to kind of do some other stuff, and I'd learned some coding, and I kept doing research on coding and buying books. So, as a 6th grader, there's this news organization called CNN. At the time, it had just become real popular after Desert Storm, but I hacked into the computer system. And I messed up a couple weather maps because I thought it'd be funny. And a couple days later, I was in elementary school, and the principal called me up there, and the GBI came, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, and they wanted to ask me questions because they'd seen on camera that I was like the only person to walk in there. And so I sat down, and they're like, "Who did you see sitting at this computer system? Did you notice anybody doing anything in there?" I thought, well, I was in there. Well, who else was in there? Because they didn't, there was no way that this 6th grader was responsible for this. So eventually I was like, "So are you talking about the," and yes. And so I explained that was me, that I was the one that had hacked in there and what I'd done, SQL algorithms. And so the principal at the time, Mr. Budig, and he told me, he's like, "Just go back to class because I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know if I should suspend you, offer you a job, or what." And oddly enough, it was kind of more offered a job. They're going forward, anytime the school system was getting new computers, as that was growing for schools, they would always call me out of class to go set them up. So the high school, whenever they'd have them, here's a 6th grader coming in and hooking up the computers and turning them on and getting them going, or loading software. They didn't always come packaged with everything you had on it. So anyway, that's kind of how it started for me. And it kind of sparked the interest in, hey, this is kind of fun. Luckily, I was young enough to where it didn't end up on my record, or that first thing that I talked about would have caused a problem. I wouldn't have been a security clearance, and I wouldn't be in the field that I'm in now. After that, I joined the Army, and I actually went to basic training between my junior and senior year of high school. And then after graduating, I went to the Army Computer Science School. In the military, I did well in those schools, and I got the opportunity to pick other places that I wanted to do things. So I started working in operations intelligence, intelligence centers. I traveled a good bit for the military, and actually started teaching to some of the other groups as I came in. And then I started building fiber networks in my civilian career. I worked for a local company and helped build it up. University System of Georgia. I designed and built their fiber networks. It's about 65 miles of fiber around the campus. And I've done multiples of those from pretty much everywhere in the United States. I spent a year in Alaska flying back and forth, designing and building theirs. And I also did a lot of work in cloud systems, which you're probably more familiar with now. It's becoming more and more popular. cloud-based architecture is huge. For me, that means it's a lot more work for me because I don't know if you really know what a cloud system is, but it's pretty much you're putting your information, instead of in a server here, you're putting it on somebody else's server. So your information is still physically somewhere. And they do split that up and do backups for different locations, but it makes it a little more fun for somebody like me to be able to try to secure those things, because obviously anything that you're looking at is transferred across the open internet. And hopefully it's encrypted properly, and it make it harder for somebody to attack you or steal that information. I've done infrastructure, network security, and now I'm a government contractor. I got into that field because I've always wanted to. Since it became a thing, since the military started releasing that to agencies like myself, the one that I work for, it's become a big interest to me. So what kind of sparked that growth was September 11th, 2001. So during that time frame, there's a lot of intelligence happening. Y'all heard of some of the agencies. There's a lot of them you haven't heard of that had a lot of information. The ones that you probably heard of is people like the NSA, the CIA, FBI. So these agencies had a lot of information about terrorist activities, terrorist plans. However, there's a big problem with sharing in between those facilities. Each one of them kind of had their own area. The firm I work for, we have 26,000 people that just work in cybersecurity. And we do the bulk of the intelligence work for the US government. Well, after September 11th and the problems that they saw there, they started looking to, well, who can handle information from all the agencies? Well, Booz Allen, we had people in each one of those agencies already, and we were already processing that data. And so it was easy for them to say, okay, we're going to authorize you to release the information that you have to any other federal agency that has proper clearance. And so that kind of grew the civilian sector. Also, federal government, they're more restricted in how they can pay their people. They have great benefits, but the civilian sector, we have the opportunity to pull people out of college, and we're not as limited based on a set of rules. The federal government employees, they have a very defined, this many years of education, this many years of experience, and we get to kind of bend that how we want to. We can get certifications that meet this specific criteria. And I can't emphasize that enough. If you plan on a degree in any kind of computer science related field, you have to get certificates. You have to specialize in something. Especially if you want to make more money. If you're wanting to progress your career, that's something that you have to do. Okay, why is this career necessary and growing? I don't know if you've heard of the term Internet of Things. So the Internet of Things is there's probably a few hundred devices in this room that would be classified into that. And it's pretty much anything that can access the internet. And that's your cell phones, that's the iPads, the computers, we call them point of sale stations that the lunchroom uses. Everything in here that can access the internet is, we call it a vulnerability point. It's somewhere that I can attack to try to get onto the network. Once I get on the network, it's pretty easy for me to pivot and go anywhere I want. And so Internet of Things is a big deal, especially when you look at, they call it bring your own device. So it's like what you're doing with your phone. If you're connected to the school's network, that is an access point for me. So if I can get on the network, that means I can get information off your phone, anybody's phone in here. Cybersecurity is developing, and there is a lot of really good things that happen. Apple is really good on their security. It makes it really hard to try to hack in there. I would have a hard time sitting in front of a device and trying to get into that device without the tools that I have available to me. So the tools that I have developed, that were developed by the NSA that I use in my career, make it a whole lot easier. Now, it's illegal for me to use them for unauthorized uses. However, I can sit in here and it would probably take me 20 minutes, and I can pull any information off anybody's machine. I could log in, and if anybody wants 100, I could probably change any of your grades in school. Now, how does that keep from people being able to do that, keep you from doing that? So that software, first of all, is highly monitored by the NSA. Anytime I use it, they know I'm using it. Also, the cost of it, it costs about $4 million a license to be able to use that software. So the use of information system brings risk to any organization. And we classify those in 3 different things: people, technology, and threats. And those are vulnerabilities. Like I talked about, each phone, each point of sale device, anything, those are entry points into a network. And that's really what I focus on. I'm not trying to hack a single device. I'm looking at getting on the network as a whole. That's where all the information lives. Once I get on it, that's where I can have my fun. In order to provide solutions to this risk, we have to identify them and then offer, like, what is the mitigation? How do we fix that? Vulnerabilities are weaknesses in a system. Threats are defined as events, circumstances, or actors which potentially cause harm. Risks are scenarios where the combination of threat, probability, and impact meet. They also work in what's called the CTAE Triad. It's confidentiality, integrity, and authorization. And that's how all data is secured. That's what we look for. We want to make sure that that data is confidential, that it is secure. We want to make sure that it is available so the people that want to get to it, that they can, and they're authorized to do that. And then we have to make sure that the data integrity, we have to make sure that somebody hasn't got into that information and changed it or made it to where it's not what it's supposed to be. Here's some threats to information systems. Specifically, the federal government deals with every one of these. Y'all may have, some of these terms may be different, some of them you may have heard of. Hacktivism is something that's becoming more and more popular. And that is where people have a specific cause that they're trying to push forward. And so that's why they're hacking things. They're trying to push their cause and draw attention to something or show a protest in something. Hackers are generally people that come through that want to make a name for themselves, especially in that community. You probably heard of the dark web, you probably don't know what it is. To simplify that as much as I can, it's like everything that's on the internet that's not easily Googleable. It doesn't show up in a search engine. The dark web actually makes up about 95% of what's available online. So there's a whole lot of stuff out there, and there's some good information. There's also scripts that people have written, that hackers have written, that you can download to hack camera systems or get access into a device. That a lot of that stuff shows up in the dark web. They sell narcotics on the dark web. It's a big deal, and it's something that people like me are having to work with and having to do a lot of focus on trying to prevent use. Insider threats. These are people that inside of an organization, it's not always possible trying to do, it's not always intentional that people are trying to do bad things, but this can be as simple as someone on staff clicking on a link in an email. So you're probably a lot more internet savvy than most people my age that I talk to. Because you'll see people that, these are the same people that share some weird stuff on Facebook or something, and you know, like, they think if it's on the internet, it's true, you know, like Abraham Lincoln said. And, but links and emails, you know, if you don't know where it came from, don't click on it. And the reason for that is that's one of the easiest entry points that I use to get into a network. If I'm going to a site and they're like, hey, we want you to try to see what you can do in this facility, it's one of the first things I do. I send an email out that, you know, you probably get them in your email that say your PayPal account has been disabled. Click on this link to, you know, fix it. That's the easiest way to upload malicious software and get in and have access. Criminal and financial, this is becoming huge. Different governments, which we'll get into a state-sponsored, that different places, different governments, different entities will recruit hackers and use them in order to steal money. Last year, that number was around $24 billion that was stolen by the criminals in financial industries. And a lot of that you see, even here, Mount Vernon Mills, they were attacked by a software, a malicious software that was put on there, and they call it ransomware, where they got their data, and they encrypted it, and then they say, hey, you have to pay us this much money if you want us to unlock your data. And they had to pay it. And we're talking like six figures in the $100,000 range to be able to get their software back. State-sponsored. This is the warfare of the future. Let me talk about terrorism first. That's the easier thing to look at. It's just attacking in order to cause fear. And the state-sponsored, they sometimes do terrorism, but a lot of times it is intentional actions against the government. The Ukraine had a attack on their infrastructure, the critical infrastructure, the power grid that shut down. And Ms. Patterson can talk about her sister that works for TVA. I actually worked there for a little while on a contract, still with the same firm because TVA is a government organization. And I worked on their cybersecurity. TVA creates power for like 7 states in the Southeast. They generate power and they sell it to like North Georgia EMC, who then sends it to your home. That's considered a critical infrastructure because if that power goes down, people die. Hospitals lose power, people get cold, especially in the Northeast where in Massachusetts I think it's -20 today. So if they didn't have electricity, that becomes a really big problem really fast. And there are state-sponsored hackers that their job is to go out and try to infiltrate organizations. There is also state-sponsored hackers in the United States. The CIA, the Cyber Warfare Center, Department of Homeland Security, all those kind of employ these guys. CIA is the most because their focus is outside the United States. They don't operate inside the U.S. borders. And to kind of give an example, which I will not confirm or deny that we were responsible for, a few years back, there was a software called Stuxnet. And if you want to read something cool about cybersecurity, this is something to look up. And Stuxnet was a malicious software that was created with one intention. We have what's called ICS environments, industrial control systems. And with industrial control systems, it's kind of the older things out there. TVA, for instance, has a lot of stuff that's created and started in the mid-40s. And so it's like stuff that uses what's called RS-232. It's communications. It's just open, close, on, off. Well, those things have been connected to the internet over the years. So this organization created this malicious software that would attack a specific thing, and it was nuclear enrichment tools. And what it would do is it would speed up really fast these centrifuges and then slow them down. And it would keep doing that over and over and over again. And what happened was the intended effect. They kept doing that until it destroyed these uranium enrichment tools. And it completely destroyed Iran's nuclear enrichment program. It would have cost them tens of billions of dollars to fix these devices. And so it stopped them from creating nuclear weapons. So whichever government entity that sponsored this, that was why. They wanted to attack that critical infrastructure for Iran. And it was very effective. However, it also gave rise to more problems. So now, I talked about cybersecurity being the warfare of the future. And the reason is, and I'm not saying it just because I was in the Army, but the U.S. military is the top of the world. We spend more on our military spending is higher than the next 10 countries combined. So countries like Iran, North Korea, they know that. They can't go head to head with our military. However, they can recruit cybersecurity people. They can afford to spend a couple $1 million instead of hundreds of billions or trillions that the U.S. spends on defense spending. but they can hire these people to do state-sponsored attacks in the U.S. That's going to become a bigger and bigger issue. Attacking critical infrastructures, attacking U.S. government systems. That's why organizations like TDA focuses so much on their cybersecurity programs, because they're a huge target. Countries look at that, and if they can hack a U.S. government system, then that's a big bragging point for them. Look what we did to the U.S. And it's becoming a bigger and bigger thing. These are some of the agencies that we support. Like I said, you've heard of some of them. Some of you probably haven't. Cybersecurity Infrastructure and Security Agency, CISA, that was stood up a few years ago by my firm, and then there were people put in place there. Their job is to kind of oversee for the Department of Homeland Security, cybersecurity, and all these other agencies are part of it. Every military, the NSA, CIA, FBI, Homeland Security, Department of Energy, Treasury, all of these are part of it. So here's what I do, my day-to-day. I try to design secure systems. That is probably 1/10 of what I do. After that, it is regular assessment of systems, and that's something that is kind of my primary job. My team focuses on assessing government systems. I have 4 other people that work for me, and then I have 3 other teams of 4 that work for me, and that's our job. We go out and we try to attack U.S. government systems. There's continuous monitoring that happens, and that's kind of the McAfee or the virus scan stuff. That happens all the time when they're looking and monitoring. There's a lot of other softwares out there that do that for broader network security, network architecture, looking for those things. Penetration testing, that's something that my teams do a lot too, and that is trying to come in and attack a network where you're sitting behind a keyboard and trying to get in there. That's kind of in the cybersecurity world, that's the thing that people like. It sounds really cool to try to attack systems and do it legally. You might have heard the term like white hat hackers, black hat hackers, gray hats, and that's all around penetration testing. It's whether you're trying to protect it, whether you're attacking authorized attacks, or whether you're doing it because you want to, and that's also illegal. But if you're a 6th grader, they don't prosecute you and you get off the job. I'll push the buttons. And then we gather intelligence. And that's a huge thing that we do, and that's where we work through trying to find, share data, share critical vulnerabilities that we discover, and we push those out. But vulnerabilities I can't speak to enough, because your data is important. Everybody's data is important. Your data is important. So that includes what you're putting out there for people to see, what is available. I do this every day. It's my career. I spent over 20 years working in cybersecurity. There is more stuff on my Facebook than there should be. There is more stuff. There is risk involved in putting data anywhere. Right now, I could probably get on somebody in this room that I know is Facebook or Instagram or something like that, and then I can scroll through and find somebody. Y'all probably done this when you're face stalking somebody. It's like, who is this person? Yeah, I see some smiles. And you find them, and then you look in there and I can look at pictures and see, oh, okay, well, they go to school here. And then, like your pictures on Instagram, it's really cool that they have a geotagging in there, but it also shows where it's at. You can look at that coding in the pictures. Almost every picture, especially if you take it with your phone, has geotagging in it. So that means that somebody, and not somebody like me, but somebody with just a couple of years, or if I sat down with any one of you for 20 minutes, I could teach you how to do it, how to look at the coding in there and see exactly within 30 meters where that picture was taken. So every time you share a picture, you're just showing this is the places that I go regularly. And so I'm not telling you that to make you scared, but with any data, and this includes Snapchat, and the reason that I don't have Snapchat or TikTok on my phone is because the federal government does not allow me to have those. If I have those on my phone, I cannot carry it with me in a government facility because they're very vulnerable, very easy to get into. But anything you send in Snapchat that's like, oh, it's going to disappear in whatever it does, 30 seconds or whatever. Yeah, if you send it, I can intercept it. I can keep it forever. And you won't get a little notification that I took a picture of it, because I'm pulling the code. And everything that's sent over the internet is in hex, and so you can capture that data, and I can push anything up. Now, my daughter knows that, and she's supposed to tell all her friends that hook to our network. I don't know if she does or not, but anything that comes over my network at home is logged, it stays on the server, and if something happens, then I can look at it, and I'm required by the federal government that I can send those logs to the NSA, and they can evaluate those further. And that's because of the job that I do, it makes me kind of a target. Like anytime I leave the country, I have to talk to the U.S. embassy there, I have to tell them where I'm going, I have a security group that is focused on where I'm going, and I have to tell them anytime I leave the area. But I say that because your data is available. Anything that you put out there is available. So don't send things, don't say things that you don't want somebody to find out about. Because it may not be important now, but that data is floating around the internet. That code is out there. And that's where you see videos show up in politicians that happened 10 years ago that they've probably long forgotten about. Because whenever you get into some kind of area that you can have influence over policy, influence over things that are going around the world, there are hundreds of people that are focused on combing that dark web where all that data is that it's not cataloged. They comb that stuff trying to find information about you that they can use to, let's say, blackmail you, to try to put influence over you. So that's stuff that you sent your senior year of high school that you don't want out on the internet. That stuff's out there, and somebody can go back and look and comb through and find. So just be very aware, and I can't stress that enough, because once it's on the internet, the delete button really doesn't delete it. And I think that's something you can see too, like you see a politician put something out on Twitter, and then the next day it's like, oh, I should have done that, people are coming after me, and they delete it. Well, and then for the next 2 weeks, that image still shows up. It's because people comb that, pull it back up. The Wayback Machine, they look at something that we want to look at Twitter 3 days ago, you can do that. Pull that data up and it can get shown. Same thing can happen on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, whatever. That data, once you put it out there, is available. So I'll quit mumbling and talking. Do y'all have any questions about that? About cybersecurity? About do's and don'ts on the internet? No, I don't want it. Did I talk too fast? It was 9 o'clock, and usually I don't speak. I work from home, so I don't speak until like 4 when somebody comes home from school or something. So I had like 6 cups of coffee this morning, so I'm fired up. No, maybe y'all need some coffee. Aunt Dorothy, can you bring some coffee out here? Yes, sir.
So are you basically like the FBI agent in my phone?
No. So I don't directly support the FBI. However, my firm does. We have people in every single government agency. We have every military installation, every location in the world. Every CIA group that's out there. If you've seen like Jason Bourne, of course that is really over the top, but there's that person that's sitting behind a computer, looking at logistics, looking at satellite imagery, drone footage. There are those people out there. But very rarely on station or on site. We're sitting in our bedrooms in Creekside Drive in a t-shirt. And that's my world. I actually have in my bag over here, my little pocketbook looking thing, I have a MiFi hotspot that is registered to a company that doesn't exist in DC. And that is so if I'm going and I'm trying to, if I'm doing something that is questionable, then we cause a problem for another government. If I'm trying to hack something in Russia, well, my agency doesn't want them being able to trace it back to me. So as far as if they hack backwards, because there's people way smarter than me out there, and they'll hack backwards, it'll end up in a company that doesn't exist in DC. The FBI, people worry about that, about who's snooping on what in their phones, the government in the US is not allowed to do that. There was a time, if you've seen, well, I just forgot his name. Oh, Eric Snowden. If you've seen that show, Snowden, okay, so he was me. He did my job for the federal government. And actually, we don't like to talk about it, but he worked for my firm at the time. And if you watch the video, it actually talks about his badge. It shows him putting his badges when he's trying to prove that he has a security clearance that he does. And he pulls his green badge out. This green badge this has this little gold thing on it. It's an encryption algorithm. I plug it into a computer. I put in the code that only I know. It's a 24-digit password that I can put in there, and it changes every 90 days. And that gives me access to classified information. So it shows that badge. He's like, here's my Booz Allen green badge. But he worked for my firm. It used to be during the Obama administration, or prior to, that same information after September 11th was all about make sure that there's not data out there, make sure the terrorists aren't planning something. And it was done not so legally. There's a thing called the FISA Court, and it is, if I want to hack your phone, I have to get authorization. It's like police. The police can't come kick in your door without authorization, without a warrant. I can't hack your material without a FISA warrant, or without the federal government signing off to do it. And so they're not in your phones. However, I do not have to have any kind of approval to look at information that you willingly put on the internet. Because it is assumed if you put it out there, you know that it's available to anyone. It's just like you standing up at the football game and yelling something. You can't say, well, I didn't, that was confidential, no one was supposed to hear it. You openly gave that information. So think about it that way. Think about whenever you're going to share a picture, it's just that picture. Would you take that picture at the football game and hold it up for everybody to see? Okay? Because when you put it on the internet, that's what you're doing. And anything that travels on the internet is out there. I didn't even mention that includes text messages. Your iMessage, it's not using cellular transmissions, it is using the internet. Anything else? Did I talk too long? All right, since you're gonna wait. Do I sing now or later?
Okay, so again, if y'all have any questions that maybe you didn't want to ask in front of everybody, but you would like to, as we're leaving, of course you can come and talk to him. And hopefully you learned something today about the career especially, but if not, maybe just a little bit more about what you put out there on social media and what you put out there in your text messages, etc. Okay? So we're going to dismiss one class at a time.